Just moments ago, President Biden addressed the nation following the pleas by Ukraine's leader for additional support in Ukraine. I want to bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes to discuss the very latest on the White House's strategy. Welcome, Nancy. So we heard the president right off the top saying that this was a convincing speech. He called it significant, and he said that we are united in our support for Ukraine. It almost sounded like maybe he might change some of his direction, but he ultimately fell short of actually giving President Zelensky some of the things he asked for, specifically that humanitarian no-fly zone. So how is this $800 million aid package that the president just announced different from what we've previously seen?
Well, it's just another magnitude larger than everything that has come before. And President Biden went into granular detail about what the U.S. has provided Ukraine so far and what it's going to provide now, almost as if to say in response to Zelensky's very moving address this morning, perhaps we're not going to give you a no-fly zone, perhaps we're not going to give you jets, but let's just level set here and talk about everything we are giving the Ukrainian people so that there's no doubt that the United States is standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. And so, let's just go over some of these numbers because they're kind of eye-popping. He says that this $800 million that he is now committing to Ukraine will go towards 800 anti-aircraft systems, otherwise known as Stingers, 9,000 anti-armor systems, those are shoulder-mounted javelins, 7,000 grenade launchers, 20 million rounds of ammunition, all of this coming directly from the U.S. Department of Defense and going to the Ukrainian military. Obviously, it's a difficult road to get all that technology into the country at a time of war, but U.S. officials say that they have been able to do it, and they'll continue to do it.
We also heard him talk about the longer-range anti-aircraft missiles that President Zelensky's been asking for. How significant is that?
That's really significant because this is a system, the S-300 surface-to-air missile, that the Ukrainians know how to operate. But America doesn't have it. It's a Russian-made system. There are some countries in Europe that have it, most notably Greece, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and U.S. officials have already been speaking with officials in those countries to see if there's a way to transfer some of that weaponry to the Ukrainian. In fact, the Secretary of Defense is in Europe right now, and two of the stops he's going to be making are in Slovakia and Bulgaria. So that is sure to come up.
Nancy, today the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, was in contact with his counterpart in Russia. How significant are those talks, and do we know the content of that conversation?
Well, it's noteworthy that the conversation took place at all. NATO officials have said that they've had trouble getting the Russian officials on the phone at all to discuss next steps, to discuss a possible ceasefire. But when you look at the readout provided by the White House, it doesn't appear that any significant progress was made in that call. It was basically the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, warning the Russians what will happen if they don't pull out of Ukraine, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said this morning that they are making some progress in their unilateral talks with the Russians, and that Russian demands have become more realistic, in his words. But we still don't have a lot of meat on that bone, what exactly it is that the Russians are demanding now and how close they could possibly be to a ceasefire. The U.S. Secretary of State said in an interview that the only way the U.S. is going to remove these crippling sanctions that have been placed on the Russian economy, that have driven the economy to the brink of default, would be if there was an irrefutable removal of all Russian troops from Ukraine. That's the only thing that would trigger the beginning of a rollback of these sanctions.
Nancy Cordes reporting from the North Lawn of the White House. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.